Hey everybody, this is Devin Galladay offering the mystical solutions to modern love. Anyway, great to have you here this week. I don't know if you're going to see me live or whether it is going to be through a replay, but thank you and welcome so much for being here. Blab seems to be working today, so that's very exciting. So as many of you probably know, we finished our series on the 5 love and relationship savers, ending up with service, i.e. love being an action of. So anyway, that was a great series. We are moving forward. However, the one thing that we are going to keep holding on to is moving slowly, descending down through the lightning path, through the tree of life. This is a special week. It gets a little interesting for sure, so I'm going to be excited to share that with you. But I think probably more importantly, we are going to start answering questions again, focusing a little bit more to individual questions about love and relationships, try to make it as practical as possible for you so you can go out and take some kind of an action to improve your love life today, right now, and also provide you sort of some insights and inspiration how other people act, so you can feel confident and secure and loved and go out into the world and go get the things accomplished that you want to. So this week, I've actually had this question posed a number of times, but I recently had it posed to me on a phone call, and it was part of a larger question. But the question is, why am I alone? I am 40 something. I am fantastic. I'm in the prime of my life, and I'm not in a relationship. I'll be honest with you. This is easy information that you can find online. I'm going to give a twist to it because I think a lot of the information that you're going to find is really sort of like, well, you need to be a different person. You need to be a different kind of person. You need to make yourself over. My cat jumped on my lap again. I'm going to try and get rid of her. And so when we start looking at a problem of like, why are you alone? I mean, there's a million and one, potential problems. But I'll be frank with you. There's almost certainly absolutely nothing wrong with you. You are perfect just as you are. I believe that from the bottom of my heart. The people who ask me that question, whom I've met, many of them, are fantastic. They are absolutely wonderful. So the important thing to understand is that your aloneness, in my humble opinion, and in Kabbalah, is that there is a bigger picture out there. In the bigger picture is the universe needs to do what it needs to do. You are part of this large puzzle that is about giving and receiving the light of the divine and participating in your world. So when you see this information that, sometimes is a little bit shaming to some degree, like you're doing something wrong or somehow you're not enough, or if you have the wrong mindset, that is kind of sucks. And I think that's not the goal here. The goal is if you are alone and you want to change that, I would say that, and this is again after speaking to a great many people, particularly women with this kind of particular issue, when they're alone, they're fantastic. Like again, I speak to a lot of women, and they're sort of like they're post 40, they've gotten their lives together, they're in a really comfortable, happy place with the world, and yet they're still alone. And it's not even so much that they're sort of like in a place of desperation. It's more along the lines of, why is this happening? Like before I was, like this other person in my 20s, I seemed to have all the dates in the world, and now as I've gotten older, and it must be men. So if there are two things that I'm going to suggest, if this applies to you, whether you're male or female, whether this applies to you, there's two things I want you to think about. One, try not to lump in all of one gender into the problem of being alone. And I don't even know if it's a problem, but we'll describe it that way because that's the way it was presented to me. So one, don't lump into the whole thing, because then what you do is then it becomes about this other gender not doing what it is that they're expected to do. And that puts a lot of pressure, actually not on the other gender, because the half of the planet of the population isn't going to care. It's going to be you who put out this sort of negative energy, this negative talk that ultimately negatively impacts yourself. So I would be conscious of that. It's really not a problem that you're alone. You can lead a fantastic, fulfilling life without a partner. You're going to have other relationships unless you lock yourself behind a door. I think that you need to always go out into the world and present yourself and be glorious and fantastic and all of that. And the part two to this question is something that I hear from people all the time. And I think I just lost my train of thought. Oh, I hate when that happens. The cat's making too much noise. So the part two of this question is that, give me a second. I'm almost there. The part two of this question is that when I say, what are you doing to cultivate love in your life? I get a lot of feedback that is, oh, I'm busy. Oh, I'm working 60 hours a week. Oh, I have this long list of requirements because I've earned this certain plateau in life and I need to find somebody who is an equal and all that other stuff. You know, those kinds of responses I actually think are a little bit detrimental. One, if you don't have time, how can you expect to cultivate a great relationship or even be conscious to the fact that there's one presented before you? So I would suggest that you take action and give yourself a little space to be seen, go to places where you can meet new people and put yourself out there in some way. That means you're probably going to have to take some action that you haven't done in quite a while. The other part is sort of like there's the physical process to this where you physically are going out and meeting new people and taking some action that is contrary. But then there's also the psychological aspect of it, which kind of feeds off the idea of all women are this or all men are that. So you want to keep in mind that you want to create an emotional space, a psychic space that is really what it is. It's setting your intention to make yourself available to love. Now, does that switch a switch? Does that turn on a light bulb? Yeah, actually it does. So you have to go out with the concept of I'm setting an intention because I believe that I want to have love in my life. I want to have a relationship in my life, and I'm willing to work within the confines of the relationship. So when I say that, I speak to a lot of people who have a laundry list of what they're looking for, I would suggest that you shouldn't settle, but at the same time, you don't want to make it impossible for somebody to meet a set of requirements. I speak to frequently younger guys that I speak to who have very, very detailed expectations about how a woman is supposed to be or not be, and that's like a terrible, terrible idea. So if you are alone and you want to, and you find it to be a problem and you want to fix that, I would suggest that you physically take some actions that will put you in places to be seen and allowed to be seen and meet new people. And two, start really examining, like you have a responsibility in this, is that whether or not you have put up sort of like psychic, emotional, spiritual blocks that justify why it's okay that the opposite sex is negative or in either gender is depending on where you're at, either gender is somehow negative, wrong, things like that. So that's my thought on that subject. And then I want to talk a little bit about sort of like the part two of this. And so this is where it gets interesting for me, at least. Every week I bring this guy out. This is the Tree of Life variation, and this yellow sphere right near the top is called Tefereth. It's frequently yellow. The color is the way it was assigned. We can question that whether that's right or wrong, but the important thing to understand is that it's the center column, and it is the second one on the top. And the way I would look at it is think of this group of three about how we interact within relationships. I think this is sort of the heart, the core of love. It is a balanced position which allows you to give and or receive. And these are, from an occultist point of view, and ironically, I just had a woman write me a letter that sort of dropped off my mailing list for using the word occult. It's nothing to be scared of. You know, occultism is just a word that goes back. It means hidden. It's not something that you need to be terrified from within itself. Nobody's doing anything. These are just ideas that we're bandying about. So anyway, people who study occultism, specifically sort of like Golden Dawn based orders, this is their aspiration, is to get to Tefereth. It's sort of a place of balance. And what's kind of particularly interesting for it, and I think I just dropped off one of my flying monkeys that's on the tree, is that you'll notice that, you know, I frequently point to this tree only because it's like a model that I can put right in front of me and it's easy. But if you've been paying close attention, this Tefereth over here is actually below the Hesed and Gevurah. And on this tree that I focus on is actually above these two. These are two variations of the tree. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I'm going to let you know that the one that's the physical model that I show in front of you, that is a variation called the Gra tree, based on a Kabbalist that came into prominence in Lithuania in the I think in the mid 1700s. And this one is what is known as the Kirker tree, that came out from a guy named Athanasius Kirker in the mid 1500s through a work called the Oedipus Aegypticus. Anyway, it's pretty interesting stuff if you're into the sort of history of it. But what's really important to understand about it is that this variation was created by a Jesuit priest. Totally cool guy. But whether or not he really understood it is questionable, and whether or not he understood that this chasm, in other words, there's no path connecting from Binah to Hesed, was purposeful or not. The thing that is going on here is that this chasm gets created, and that's sort of like the, shall we, frequently described as the fall of man. The difference between man and God is in that chasm. In this variation of the tree, there really isn't a chasm, that all these paths are still connected to each other. Whether or not you ascribe to one tree or the other is sort of like a minutia, but understand that when we look on this tree, we have a sense of balance. It's kind of like a connecting point to everything in the middle through Tefereth. Think of it as love and beauty. Its actual name means beauty. And in the Golden Dawn tradition, it's something that people ascribe to be. It's like a higher up kind of place. Just on a personal note, that's something that I've personally done. Oh, by the way, thank you for that applause. Somebody did that. I'm very excited. I don't even know what it means, but it's very cool. And so here you have the same thing. Like, this is again Golden Dawn tradition. The attribution of a higher variation from the Tree of Life here just means it's a little bit closer to the divine. I think the idea is that the concept of balance, where these two spheres have moved up in relationship to the others, suggests to me that a balance point has a certain measure of higher divinity to it than it does on the Kirker tree, which focuses a little bit more on the idea of the chasm and this space here, which is kind of like the gap between us and God, and this sphere here kind of gives it space to talk about Da'ath. We're going to talk about that for another time. So if you're thinking of the tree, think of balance, think of love, and your highest, most centered ideal as in your physical place. So anyway, I hope that was fun and interesting. I try to keep these down to 15 minutes, so these are just tasters, and we delve in deeper in classes and things. But for now, thank you so much for being here. I hope you've had fun. If you have any questions, I'm always available at devongallaudet.com. As a matter of fact, I've put a little block here that if you want to click on for my tape later when I cut this, I will be putting down devongallaudet.com. Come visit, come ask questions, and always thank you so much, and I hope to see you all next week, 12 o'clock noon. Join my newsletter, like me on Facebook, and thanks so much. Hope to see you all real soon.